Tonight, I can say with certainty, having spoken to a lot of primary sources, absolutely primary sources, that Jagdeep Dhankhar was effectively sacked. It was not health, of course not health. It was not that he resigned, he was effectively thrown out of a job. He was given the option of quitting, otherwise he would have been sacked or rather impeached through a very brutal and straightforward process. Now, why would the government want to remove a person they have themselves made vice president, an unlikely candidate with no great mass base, a person with no great political background? They have made him vice president. Why would they want to remove him? Did he outlive his utility? Or was it something else more than meets the eye? Well, it is, ladies and gentlemen, as I have found out, completely something else. And what I found out is that Jagdeep Dhankhar was increasingly acting as a Congress party agent. Sometimes an agent of the entire opposition, but he had become unnaturally close to the Congress party. He was working very close to the Congress party ever since the Congress party had threatened to sack him by impeaching him. And this happened at the end of 2023. He got so scared that in the process of satiating the Congress party and keeping them in good humor, he became effectively an opposition magnet. He became the center of political activity for the opposition parties. He became politically ambitious. The opposition parties also worked to give him a sense of, exaggerated sense of importance, which he did not realize was clearly overstating his largely ornamental role as vice president. And not having had a successful political career, he felt that at this stage he could start a political career by being the leader of the opposition that Rahul Gandhi had failed to become. So you see, Rahul Gandhi has failed as a leader of the opposition, and Dhankhar wanted to fill that role. And that is why he has done a lot of things which would not be acceptable under any circumstances. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here are 7 reasons which prove what I am saying, that he had become an opposition magnet. Reason number 1, he shocked everyone, including the opposition parties, by deciding to accept the motion of the impeachment of Justice Varma presented to him by 63 signatures of opposition leaders, when it was known fact and known to him that the government was bringing in such a motion. He met Arvind Kejriwal, he decided political strategy with him. There was no real reason to meet Arvind Kejriwal, but he had become a sort of centerpiece of opposition politics. And therefore, he did not want to keep the government in the loop. And that is why he accepted the motion of impeachment from the Congress party, and he made sure he did it well before it was announced in the Lok Sabha, where the government was doing the same thing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, he also, in December 2024, while sharing a stage with the Union Agriculture Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan, he went hammer and tongs against the government, saying that I am very unhappy with the government. I have great displeasure with the government. It is because of the government that farmers are agitating. And he said this government does nothing and we are doing nothing. Now, why would he make this kind of comment in December 2024 unless he had decided that he wants to play the role of opposition leader? Now, viewers, vice president is a decorative post, with all respect to the previous vice presidents. It's not the role which has been elected. People have not elected you. You've been selected, and through an indirect process, you've become vice president. You have to not cross the Lakshman Rekha. If every vice president thinks he will do what the prime minister is supposed to be doing, there will be mayhem in this country. Now, viewers, he was constantly then started after December 2024, and it is believed that when he was spoken to by the prime minister and Shivraj Singh Chauhan and the government, he apologized at that point of time. He said, I have done a wrong thing. I should not have done this. He promised never to do this again. But then he was back to the same thing. About 3 months back onwards, he started having a series of meetings with opposition leaders. He even met Arvind Kejriwal, who has no qualification, despite other than being the convener of the Aam Aadmi Party. He met him last Sunday. And he started calling these opposition leaders home, and they found him a useful and foolish instrument. He wanted to feel important, they made him feel important, and they used him. Ladies and gentlemen, just 2 hours before his resignation, he was on a long phone call with Jairam Ramesh of the Congress party. Jairam Ramesh is the same man who brought the impeachment motion against the Vice President. And then the Vice President's office started sharing videos of Jagdeep Dhankhar's meeting with Mallikarjun Kharge soon before the session began. So by this time, he had established himself as the de facto leader of the opposition, and he had made it quite clear to the opposition leaders that as long as they kept him in office, he would do their work for him. 4 months ago, ladies and gentlemen, Dhankar said that there needs to be a national debate to address the shift from democracy to democracy. Emotion-driven politics threatens good governance. And so, in this backdrop of having become an opposition magnet, he then accepted the Rajya Sabha motion on Justice Varma before the Lok Sabha announced its own. In other words, he basically said the directly elected House of Representatives, the Lok Sabha, had no role. He had taken over effectively. So it became a sort of a semi-emergency situation where he was doing whatever he wanted. He said the Rajya Sabha is a parallel house. We will overtake the Lok Sabha. I am the head of the Rajya Sabha. I will do whatever I want. So he became an opposition lobbyist behind the scenes. He tried to become a political negotiator rather than a constitutional figure. By this time, he had also, in the last few weeks, everybody had started saying in Delhi that he had brought down the position of Vice President to becoming an active political negotiator. And he became so personally ambitious that he did not think about constitutional concerns while being an opposition magnet. I'm asking you, viewers, should a Vice President of India, an ornamental role, which should maintain constitutional neutrality, become engaged so deeply in political power plays with the opposition? Was this discussed openly? What was discussed in his multiple meetings with opposition leaders just before the monsoon session? So obviously the government began to think that this man has gone too far. He's become a total all-out politician, and therefore it was concluded he had overstepped his role. He was promoting and publicizing his meetings with opposition leaders. His role under Article 63, ladies and gentlemen, opposition may say whatever about Dhankar, but he has a ceremonial role. He's only supposed to support parliamentary processes. He's not supposed to be actively shaping political outcomes or advocating political policy. The Vice President has no constitutional authority to independently advance or endorse parliamentary motions such as impeachment. This is guided by established laws. Jagdeep Dhankhar had become a very over-ambitious ceremonial figure. He wanted to become a big player. He wanted to be more influential than the Prime Minister and the entire cabinet. He was creating a parallel government of his own making in his own chambers, and he was acting ahead of the Lok Sabha. He was raising questions about the separation of powers. He broke all lines of neutrality expected from his office. And his ceremonial support, he felt this ceremonial role has no value for him. He needs to become an active, total politician. And his resignation, he thought, would have impact. He thought, if I resign now, the whole country will go crazy. And they will say, we want Dhankar back. The tragedy for Jagdeep Dhankhar, and this is where he ends up as a tragicomic kind of figure. Tragicomic figure, Mr. Dhankar, is how I will describe you. Is that nobody cares much for him. He's going to be used for 2 or 3 days by the opposition. And then he'll be thrown aside. The maximum he can do is try to do a Satpal Malik by trying to go to a YouTuber and give an interview. But that also will have very limited and diminishing utility beyond one more headline for a day. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, Jagdeep Dhankhar has destroyed his public career by trying to take over the cabinet and the elected government of the country and confabulating with a party which does not even have 100 MPs. Mr. Dhankhar, the verdict is clear. You crossed the line. And we don't believe that you would have been made to go in the way you did, made to go, had it been clear that you had become effectively a political lobbyist. We don't need a political lobbyist in the office of Vice President.